My God, Elena, I'm not your babysitter. Those were the first words out of her mouth. No apology. No hesitation. Just that sharp, cold sentence. Like Lily hadn't spent 2 hours sitting outside the school gate, hugging her backpack against the December wind. I can still see her so clearly. Knees pulled inward, fingers red from the cold, trying to stay warm by tucking her hands under her sleeves. She didn't cry. Lily rarely cries. She just waits quietly, like she's afraid someone will call her dramatic if she asks for help. And me? I stood there, rooted to the sidewalk, watching my daughter shiver while my mother leaned against her car door scrolling her phone, like she was the one who'd been inconvenienced. That's not my responsibility, she added, brushing a strand of hair from her face. You should have told me the exact time. Honestly, Elena, I have a life. I didn't answer. Not then. When you grow up surviving other people's storms, you learn to hold your silence like a blade. Calm, sharp, final. My name is Elena. I'm 32 years old, a single mom, and people always say I seem composed. Too composed. Like I don't feel anything. But the truth is, I feel everything. I've just learned to keep the earthquakes on the inside. Especially for Lily. I promised myself long ago that she'd never grow up wondering whether someone would show up for her. Our apartment is small but safe. Warm lamps glow in the corners, soft blankets pile on the couch, and glitter. Glitter is everywhere because Lily can't make a drawing without adding sparkles like the sky. We don't have much, but every piece of this home is built on intention. Built on the opposite of the chaos I grew up in. Maybe that's why that day cut so deep. I told my mother to leave. Quietly. And she did. Then came 3 long days of silence. No calls. No messages. Nothing. But on the 4th day, everything shifted. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me, would you have stayed silent or would you have walked away too? Backhand index pointing down, comment your answer. The next part gets even harder. Across town, in the quiet neighborhood with trimmed hedges and houses that all looked the same, stood the place I grew up, my parents' home. Even from the outside it looked cold. Perfectly maintained, always spotless, always silent. A house that felt more like a museum than a place where a child was supposed to be loved. My mother, Miriam, kept everything sharp. Sharp words, sharp eyes, sharp expectations. She used to tell me I was too sensitive, like it was a weakness I'd chosen on purpose. If I cried, she'd sigh dramatically. If I smiled too big, she'd tell me to settle down. If I talked too much, she'd ask why I needed so much attention. My father, Charles, wasn't cruel, just absent in a way you can't point to. He had perfected the art of quiet survival. A nod here, a hum there, always keeping the peace by never taking a stand. He thought silence was a shield, but it became a weapon all its own. Growing up that way does something to you. It made me believe that love had to be earned. Proved. Worked for. So even after I moved out, even after Lily was born, I kept trying. Holidays. Birthdays. Sunday visits with pastries and polite conversation. I thought grandmotherhood would soften Miriam, maybe melt something inside her. I imagined she'd look at Lily and see a chance to do things differently. A chance to show warmth she'd never shown me. But instead, she treated my daughter like an accessory. Something to parade when convenient and ignore when she wasn't in the mood. Lily would show her drawings, and Miriam would glance for half a second before returning to her phone. She'd sigh when Lily talked too much. She'd correct her, criticize her, hush her. Just small things. Small dismissals. But those are the things that rot the fastest, aren't they? And me? I kept smoothing everything over, laughing it off, telling myself she didn't mean it, or it's just who she is, because keeping the peace felt safer than opening old wounds. But beneath all of it, there was always a tiny crack. A thin, quiet fracture running right through the middle of our so-called family. One I refused to look at directly, because I was so desperate to believe that love, even cold, uneven love, was still worth keeping. I ignored the tiny cracks, smoothed them over, convinced myself that keeping peace was the same as keeping family. Then came that afternoon in late winter. Before we get there, have you ever ignored red flags in family? Drop a triangular flag if you relate. The call came at 1:17 p.m. I remember the exact time because the world seemed to freeze around it. Elena, this is the school nurse. Lily has a fever. We need someone to pick her up. I was at work, halfway through a meeting, papers spread in front of me. The edges of my vision blurred. Lily rarely gets sick, and when she does, she becomes small and quiet in a way that scares me. I called the only person close enough to help my mother. Miriam, the school just called. Lily has a fever. Can you please pick her up? I'll be there as soon as I can. Silence. Then her voice, flat and clipped enough to slice the air. Elena, I told you, I'm not your babysitter. She didn't ask how Lily was. She didn't ask if it was serious. She didn't even pretend to consider it. Just no. Then the line clicked dead. I stood there staring at my phone, feeling a familiar humiliation wash over me, the kind I learned to hide as a child. That old reflex rose up. Just breathe, just understand her mood, just keep the peace. But something under that reflex was shifting. By the time I reached the school, 2 full hours later, the winter sun had already dipped low. The front office had closed early. And then I saw her. Lily was on the concrete bench outside the locked main entrance, curled up like a little bird trying to protect itself from the cold. Her backpack was pulled tight against her chest, her breath visible in the icy air. Her cheeks were pink, her eyes dull with fever. She didn't run to me like she usually does. She just looked up tired and whispered, "Can we go home now?" My throat tightened so sharply I could barely speak. I wrapped my coat around her, lifted her into my arms, and her skin felt warm against the icy wind. She leaned into me but said nothing. That night I made her ginger tea, wrapped her in her favorite blanket, and sat beside her bed watching her breathe. The kind of breathing that's shallow and warm with fever. I replayed everything. The school letting her wait outside. Cold bench. The 2 hours she spent alone. But the worst part wasn't the school. It was the truth settling deep and heavy in my chest. Someone chose that cold for her. Someone had the time, the chance, the ability. And still said no, Miriam. For a moment the old instinct tried to surface. Give it time. She didn't mean it. Call her tomorrow. But over that instinct, something new rose. Quiet, solid, unshakable, a certainty. I didn't call her that night. Or the next. For 3 days I said nothing at all. And then the panic started. Something inside me tightened, quiet, heavy, unignorable. And for 3 days I said nothing. Then the panic started. Before I continue, would you have called back or stayed silent? Comment below. For 3 days my phone lit up non-stop. Not from Miriam. Course not. She never apologized directly. She outsourced that job. First came my aunt's voicemail, delivered in her usual breathless rush. Elena, your mother is very upset. You know how she gets. Just call her so she can calm down. Then came Carol, my mother's closest friend, the woman who hosted monthly baking days and pretended to understand family dynamics just because she owned 4 different stand mixers. Elena, sweetheart, your mom is distraught. She said you hung up on her. That doesn't sound like you. Maybe you're overwhelmed. Call her back so we can clear this up. And finally my father. His voice soft, cautious, rehearsed. Elena, your mother's been crying. Maybe you two should talk. Not a single question about Lily. Not a single word about the fever, the 2-hour wait, the cold bench. Only Miriam's feelings, Miriam's distress, Miriam's discomfort. But the strange thing was, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't even feel conflicted. I felt still. Not punishing them. Not making a point. Just protecting the tiny healing space inside me that had quietly opened the moment I wrapped Lily in my coat outside the school. Then on the 4th day, fate, or irony, decided to intervene. Lily had a class project that needed frosting, so we made a quick stop at a grocery store near my parents' neighborhood. A rare trip. One I didn't think twice about. We were in the baking aisle, comparing frosting flavors for Carol's monthly kids' baking day, when I heard it. Elena. Name. Her voice. Startled, sharp, unsure, I turned, and there she was. Miriam, clutching her purse like she needed something to hold on to. Lily glanced up at her, offering a small, polite smile. Not the bubbly run-into-arms energy she used to have. just polite. "Mommy, can we get the rainbow sprinkles?" she asked, tugging my sleeve gently, already turning away from Miriam. My mother blinked, thrown off by Lily's quiet distance. "You're going to Carol's?" she asked, voice tightening. "Why didn't you call me?" "I could've," she stopped. I didn't fill the silence for her this time. Then, with a tone that was half offer, half demand, she added, "I could come along." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't explain. I didn't justify. "No," I said softly. "You're not invited." Her face froze, confusion first, then disbelief, then a flicker of fear she tried to mask. "Elena, you're overreacting," she snapped, defaulting to her favorite dismissal. "You always do this. You take things too far." But I was already turning away. Lily slipped her hand into mine, and we walked down the aisle together. Steady, quiet, free in a way that felt new that night, for more voicemails came in. I didn't listen to any of them twice. And that silence, the very thing she'd always used as a weapon against me, suddenly belonged to me. But the real storm was just beginning. Have you ever had to use someone's tactics against them? Share below them why father finally broke the silence on a Tuesday morning. Text message. Short. Predictable. Just like every attempt he had ever made to fix things. "You've made your point. Your mother is miserable." I stared at the screen, not angry. Just stunned by how deeply he misunderstood me after all these years. A point. Like this was a game. Like I was keeping score. He still didn't see it, that I wasn't making a point. I was drawing a line. One that should have been drawn years ago. I put the phone face down and went back to packing Lily's lunchbox, slipping a strawberry heart into the corner the way she liked. She hummed while coloring at the table, a soft tune she'd invented herself. The quiet in our home had changed. It wasn't the tense, breath-holding quiet I grew up with. It felt clean. Safe. 2 days later, the envelope arrived. Cream-colored. Formal. My name written in my father's handwriting. Careful, practiced, almost apologetic. Inside was a single sheet. An updated notification of my parents' will. They had removed me as executor. Replaced me with my cousin Rachel. The same Rachel who once called Lily dramatic for crying when she fell on concrete. This was supposed to hurt me. A punishment for stepping out of line. A reminder of the power they believed they still held. But the strangest thing happened. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I didn't feel anything close to the devastation they must have expected. Instead, clarity washed over me like warm water. They wanted distance. I had simply given them what they asked for. The will was not betrayal. It was confirmation. Confirmation that they had never truly seen me. Confirmation that they had never really chosen Lily. Confirmation that stepping back wasn't pettiness. It was protection. That week, something in our home shifted even more. Lily stopped asking about Grandma completely. She no longer waited for texts or visits. She moved with a softer, steadier confidence, her shoulders less tense, her laughter less careful. One night while brushing her hair, she leaned into me and said, "I like it when it's just us." And it clicked. Safety isn't a place. Safety is a person. Or sometimes one small pair of arms wrapped around you at bedtime. But even in that new peace, I could feel something in the air tightening. The way the sky feels right before a winter storm breaks open. By the end of February, I had grown used to the quiet. Then on a bitter Thursday night, the storm finally broke. You won't believe what they did next. Keep watching and make sure you're following so you don't miss the next part. It was nearly midnight when my phone started buzzing. 3 missed calls from my father. Then a text. "Power's out. Your mom slipped. Can't get the car out. Can you help?" I closed my eyes and pictured the scene. Their old house up on that steep, icy driveway. The walkway slick with winter frost. Porch light flickering. I could almost see her, struggling for balance, maybe tears, maybe anger bubbling up as Dad pathetically tried to help. The familiar chill of obligation settled in my chest. For a second, I heard the old voice. "Don't let people down. Be the one to fix it." But then I saw Lily's face. Back in that bitter schoolyard cold, on the concrete bench, waiting for someone who didn't come. I felt the ache in her small body, the silent question in her eyes. I opened the message thread, thumb hovered over the keyboard and typed one word. No, I didn't hesitate. I didn't explain. I didn't second guess. I hit send. And then I went to bed. For the first time in weeks, I slept with my mind quiet. Morning came too soon. The phone screamed again. 7 missed calls. 2 voicemails. All from them, all urgent, filled with fear and need. The old reflex tugged at me. Guilt, duty, pressure. But I ignored it. Instead, I called a friend, Carol. Can we take Lily out today? Just her and me. Yes. Half an hour later we were at the Children's Museum. Bubbles floating, children laughing, pancake smell in the air. Lily chased foam soap in the bubble room, her hiccups punctuating giggles as she tried to pop bubbles with small, sticky fingers. And she never once asked where her grandparents were. Didn't even glance around for them. Later in the afternoon my phone rang. The screen said Rachel. My stomach dropped. She broke her wrist. Rachel's voice started sharp. Mom slipped on the ice. Dad's back has gone out. They've been without power for 2 days. I guess, maybe you could still help. Silence stretched between us. Then I heard the familiar line. Be the bigger person here. I stared at the phone, my fingers tight around it. I didn't hesitate. I said calmly, I already am. That's why I'm keeping Lily away. And I hung up before she could argue. An hour later. An email. Long rambling. Full of softness and we're family, you know how much I love you. And I'm so worried about Lily. And faults were made by all parties. But never an apology. Never a, I'm sorry for what I made her go through. Never a, I realize I was wrong. Just more obligation draped in guilt. I closed that email, exhaled, and went on with my day. Lily built a tower with foam blocks in the museum's playroom. She drank syrupy strawberry milk from a slip-proof cup. She laughed. She felt safe. But I knew. The universe wasn't done testing me yet. I closed that email and went on with my day. But the universe wasn't done testing me yet. Was I wrong to say no? Comment your honest opinion below. It was early March. The temperature had dropped overnight, leaving the city frozen in a brittle glaze of ice. Streets sparkled deceptively, like a holiday postcard hiding danger beneath. Carol, Lily, and I were returning from a craft fair. Laughter echoing, sticky fingers from shared cinnamon buns, bubblegum sweet glue lingering on our hands. The warmth in the car contrasted sharply with the cold outside. Then, a black SUV appeared on the shoulder. Hazards flashing. Carol whispered my name softly. I slowed. Inside, my parents looked small. Dad hunched over the wheel. A helpless man in a world that had finally handed him a mirror instead of a microphone. Mom's wrist was wrapped, pale face pinched, hair askew. An image that used to command me. Now it only made them appear fragile. Vulnerable. Human. The child inside me, the one that always wanted to stop, to run back, to fix everything, flared up. My stomach twisted with old reflexes, the urge to please, to rescue. And then I heard Lily humming from the back seat. Braiding a sparkly string through her hair, she glanced at me, eyes bright and untroubled. She didn't flinch, didn't worry. Her little hands worked with quiet determination. I pressed the gas. I kept driving home. The door closed behind us, the heat wrapped around us like a soft promise. Dinner smelled of garlic and rosemary. The heater hummed steadily. Lily spread out her crafts across the living room floor. Glitter and colored pencils scattered everywhere. Laughter bubbled, not forced, not tentative. Just ours. Later she pulled out a drawing. A pink house on the page, 3 figures in the yard, her, me, and Carol. No one else. Do I still have a grandma? She asked, curiosity pure, not sadness. I swallowed. She shrugged lightly. Maybe she forgot how to be nice. And then I realized something profound. Lily wasn't erasing her past. She wasn't ready to forget anyone. She was simply making sense of it in her own way. She had her own story, separate from the disappointments and cold silences I'd carried for decades, for weeks. I had wrestled with what it meant to protect her, to shield her from the world my parents had always offered. And now, a 7-year-old humming braiding drawing, had given me the answer I'd been chasing. I sat back and let it sink in. In that moment, a 7-year-old taught me something I'd spent weeks trying to figure out. And it changed everything. I stared at my phone for a moment, hesitating, not out of fear but out of curiosity. Could I really offer an opening without losing everything we'd built? Then I typed, "Do you want to see Lily next weekend?" 3 minutes later, the reply buzzed in. Yes. Saturday arrived cold but bright. The park felt neutral, a blank slate waiting for whatever would unfold. My parents sat on a bench like guests unsure if they were invited, shivering slightly, wrapped in their own discomfort. Lily approached slowly, small boots crunching over the frost-bitten grass. She glanced at me, eyes searching for permission. "Grandma," she said softly, "will you push me on the swing?" Miriam froze. Her gaze flicked to me, as if asking what was allowed. I nodded gently. She hesitated, then slowly pushed Lily. Boots brushed dirt, laughter tinkled into the crisp air, and for the first time it felt safe. Not forced, not tense, just delicate balance. My parents stayed quiet. Tentative. Where? Their presence no longer wielded as control, but accepted as background. Silence had become space, not a weapon. The visit lasted less than an hour. No apologies forced, no guilt trips. Just presence, careful and mindful. They didn't demand more than what was offered. They simply seemed grateful. A few days later, my father emailed about a school fundraiser. "Only if it's okay." I replied with boundaries clearly in place, and they followed each one. No pushing. No rewriting history. Just a willingness to participate on terms that respected Lily's safety and my own. Weeks later, Lily handed me a second drawing. The same pink house, but now 5 figures. Her, me, Carol, and her grandparents standing quietly in the yard. It didn't sting. It felt like a beginning. Nothing had returned to the way it was, and that was exactly the point. We weren't trying to restore something broken. We were building something new. Quieter, sturdier, shaped by boundaries instead of fear. Lily moved through life with steadier confidence. I understood that protecting her mattered more than preserving the fragile peace I had once chased. Every hug, every laugh, every safe bedtime reaffirmed that love and security weren't always tied to tradition or bloodlines. The past remained, but it no longer defined us. If this story stayed with you, tell me where you're listening from. And if you've ever had to draw a hard line with family, share your story below. Subscribe for more stories about finding strength when family fails you, and don't forget to hit the notification bell. Thank you for listening. Remember, protecting your child is never the wrong choice. See you in the next one.